Here's what nobody tells you about winning. The moment you actually hit it big, you realize the game was never about luck at all. 3 years ago, I watched $78,000 appear on a MEGABUCKS machine screen. $78,000? My college debt erased. My mom's surgery paid for. My life completely different in one electronic blink. And then a manager in a cheap suit walked over, smiled the kind of smile you give a dog who's made a mess, and said 2 words that would change everything I understood about power, fairness, and what it actually means to fight for yourself. Not congratulations, not let me get your paperwork. He said, machine malfunction. Now, I'm going to tell you what I did next, but more importantly, I'm going to tell you what that moment taught me about every other rigged system you've ever felt powerless inside of. My name is Marcus Chen, though some people used to call me Lucky, which is ironic given what I'm about to tell you. I'm not a professional gambler. I'm not a lawyer. 3 years ago, I was just a 31-year-old guy working in IT support, carrying student loan debt that felt like a backpack full of rocks, watching my mom postpone medical procedures because insurance wouldn't cover everything, and feeling like I was running on a treadmill that kept speeding up while I kept falling further behind. I'm telling you this because I need you to understand. I was nobody special. I had no power, no connections, no secret knowledge. I was exactly like most people who walk into a casino, someone hoping for a break, not really expecting one. Just filling time and feeding small hopes into machines that are mathematically designed to take more than they give. And if you've ever felt that sick, disorienting feeling of being told that what you know is real isn't real, by a boss, by a system, by an institution, by someone with more authority than you, then you need to stay with me through this entire story, because what happened to me in that casino isn't just about gambling. It's about every single moment in your life when someone with power tries to rewrite your reality, and you have to decide whether you're going to let them. Here's the core pain I'm going to address in this video, and I need you to hear this clearly. Most people go through life believing that fairness is automatic, that systems are designed to honor truth, that if you're genuinely right about something, if you have evidence, if you have proof, then justice will naturally find you. We've been taught this story since childhood. Speak up, tell the truth, and the good guys win. And so when we encounter a rigged moment, when we're denied something we've legitimately earned, when we're gaslit by an institution that has more lawyers and more money and more time than we do, we freeze. We doubt ourselves. We walk away bitter but resigned, believing that this is just how power works, and there's nothing we can do about it. I'm going to destroy that myth today. I'm going to show you that the moment someone tries to deny your reality is not the end of your leverage. It's the beginning of it, but only if you understand the difference between being right and being effective. Only if you know the invisible rules that institutions follow when they think no one's watching. Only if you can stay emotionally calm while strategically escalating in ways that make your truth more expensive to ignore than to acknowledge. By the end of this video, you're not just going to know what I did to get my $78,000. You're going to have a completely different lens for understanding power, documentation, emotional endurance, and how to fight systems that are designed to exhaust you into silence. And more than that, you're going to know that you're not powerless. You never were. You were just playing by rules that were deliberately designed to make you lose. So let me take you back to the actual night, because the details matter more than you think. It was a Tuesday. I remember that specifically because Tuesdays were my mom's surgery consultation days, and I'd driven 2 hours to be with her for a minor procedure. Nothing serious, just some routine thing that insurance was only partially covering. The appointment ran late, and by the time she was done, and resting and insisting I didn't need to stay the night, it was almost midnight. I had a 2-hour drive back home, and I was exhausted, not physically tired, but that soul-level exhaustion where you're just weary of everything costing more than you have. There was a casino about 15 minutes from the medical center, one of those mid-tier places. Not fancy, not run down, just corporate and fluorescent and filled with people escaping something. I didn't go there often, maybe 5 or 6 times in my life. Always when I was killing time or avoiding something else. But that night, I didn't want to drive home just to turn around and come back in the morning. And I didn't want to sit alone in a hotel room with my thoughts about money and my mom's health and how I was 31 years old and still felt like I was barely surviving. So I went to the casino. Not because I loved gambling, not because I had some system or strategy, just because it was something to do. A place where time moves differently and you can trade small amounts of money for the brief chemical hope that maybe something will change. I walked in with $120 in my wallet. That was my limit. That was the amount I decided I could lose without feeling sick about it later. And for about 2.5 hours, I did exactly what most people do. I moved from machine to machine, fed in 20 here, 40 there, watched the reels spin, won a little, lost more. Felt that little dopamine spike when 3 symbols lined up. Felt that hollow drop when they didn't. It's hypnotic. The sounds, the lights, the way the casino is designed to have no clocks and no windows, so you lose track of time and self and consequence. By about 2:30 in the morning, I was down to my last $40. I decided this would be it. One more machine, and then I'd go sleep in my car in the parking lot for a few hours before driving home. I wasn't chasing losses. I wasn't desperate. I was just tired and ready to be done. And that's when I walked past the MEGABUCKS machine. Now, if you don't know, MEGABUCKS is a progressive jackpot slot. It's networked across multiple casinos, and the jackpot builds over time as people play. The minimum bet is $3, which is higher than most slots. And the odds of hitting the big jackpot are astronomically low. We're talking millions to 1. Most people walk past it. Some people play it for the fantasy, knowing they're basically donating money to watch a big number on a screen that they'll never win. I'd walked past that specific machine probably a dozen times that night. But this time, and I know how this sounds, I know it sounds like magical thinking or post hoc narrative construction, but this time, something in me just stopped. It wasn't a voice. It wasn't a premonition. It was more like a quiet pull, a feeling that said, just sit here for a minute. So I did. I sat down. I inserted my player's card, that little loyalty card the casino gives you to track your play. And I put in my last $40. The machine was one of those classic Vegas-style slots with the physical reels and the old-school mechanical sounds. 3 reels, simple symbols. Red 7s, bars, cherries. The progressive jackpot display was right at the top. $78,384. I remember looking at that number and thinking, that would change everything. That's not Powerball money. Not quit your job money, but it's breathe again money. It's handle life money. I set the bet to $3 per spin. Maximum bet, because that's what you need to be eligible for the progressive jackpot, which meant I had about 13 spins before I was completely out, and I'm not going to build false drama here. Most of those spins were nothing. The machine took my money in $3 increments, gave back a few small wins, $6 here, $9 there, but mostly just took. Standard. Expected. By spin 11, I was ready to get up, but I had 2 spins left, $9 remaining, and I thought, you came this far, just finish it. I pressed the button for spin 12. Nothing. $3 gone. 1 spin left. My absolute last $3 in that machine. My last bit of play money for the night. The final moment before I'd walk out to my car and sleep in the back seat like someone whose life hadn't quite worked out the way he'd hoped. I pressed the button. And the world stopped. I need you to understand what it's like when a slot machine hits a major jackpot, because it's not what you see in movies. It's not gentle bells and soft music. The reels didn't spin slowly and build suspense. They just locked instantly, simultaneously, all 3 reels stopping in perfect alignment with this heavy mechanical chunk sound that I felt in my chest. Red 7. All 3 symbols. The exact combination for the progressive jackpot. And before my brain even processed what I was seeing, the machine started screaming. That alarm I mentioned earlier, it's not designed to sound like celebration. It's designed to sound like an emergency. It's this piercing, relentless siren, like a car alarm that won't shut off. And it's so loud that people across the entire casino floor turn and look. It's supposed to announce your win, to create excitement, to make other people think, hey, maybe I could win too. But in the moment, it just felt violent, overwhelming. My hands started shaking. My vision narrowed. I couldn't breathe right. And then the screen changed. The reels disappeared, and instead, there was just this massive display. Jackpot. And underneath it, in huge digital numbers, $78,384. I sat there staring at those numbers, and my entire body flooded with this cocktail of chemicals I didn't even know I had. Adrenaline, disbelief, relief, terror, joy. I started laughing, but it came out weird, like choking. I put my hands over my face. I think I said, "Oh my God," about 15 times. $78,000. My student loans were $62,000. My mom's out-of-pocket medical costs were about $8,000. This was real. This was happening. My life was about to be completely different. And that's when I did something that would later save my entire case, though I didn't know it at the time. I took out my phone, opened the camera app, and I started recording. I didn't ask permission. I didn't think about whether I was allowed to. I just held my phone up and recorded the screen. The jackpot display, the machine number clearly visible on the front panel, my player's card still inserted, the timestamp in the corner of my phone showing 2:47 a.m. Just 30 seconds of shaky vertical video, my hand trembling so badly you can see the image vibrate. I was recording the moment, documenting the best thing that had ever happened to me. But what I was actually doing, without knowing it, was creating the only piece of evidence that would keep them from stealing it from me. The alarm was still going. People were gathering. I heard someone say, "Holy shit, he hit megabucks." A woman next to me said, "Congratulations," and I thanked her. I'm not sure. Everything was happening in this strange slow motion clarity and chaos at the same time. And then I saw her walking toward me. Karen. I didn't know her name yet, but I would learn it. Mid-50s, wearing the burgundy blazer that casino managers wear. The kind of outfit that's supposed to signal authority without being threatening. 2 security guards were walking slightly behind her, not running, not rushing, just accompanying her in that way that makes it clear they're with her, they're on her team, they're part of whatever is about to happen. And something in her body language made my stomach drop even before she reached me. She wasn't smiling the way people smile when they're about to deliver good news. She was smiling the way customer service people smile when they're about to tell you no, but they want you to stay calm while they do it. The alarm shut off. Manually, suddenly, mid-scream. She'd used some kind of override key, and the silence that followed felt heavy. "Congratulations on the exciting display," she said. And I remembered those words exactly because they immediately felt wrong. Not "congratulations on your win." On the display, I said thank you. I probably stammered something about not believing it, about this being crazy, my brain still trying to catch up to the reality that I'd just won $78,000. "I need to pause the machine for a moment while we verify everything," she said, her tone friendly but firm. "Standard procedure for jackpots this size. We need to check the machine's logs, verify your ID, make sure everything is in order before we can process the payment." That sounded reasonable. That sounded like exactly what should happen. I nodded. She pulled out a manager key, physical key on a lanyard, and inserted it into a slot on the machine's side panel. The screen went dark. Completely dark. The jackpot display, the number, the confirmation, just gone. Just a black screen like the machine had never been on. My heart rate spiked. "Wait, what?" "It's fine," she said quickly, her smile never changing. "We just have to lock the machine so no one else can play it during verification. Everything is saved in the system. Can you come with me to the office? We'll get your identification, run some checks, and get this sorted out." She gestured toward the back of the casino floor. The security guards were still standing nearby, not looking at me, just present, witnessing, creating a visual that suggested I should cooperate. And I want you to understand something that's important. In that moment, I still trusted the system. I still believed that procedure meant steps toward getting what I'd won. I still thought that because I was right, because I'd legitimately hit that jackpot, because I had seen it with my own eyes, the system would naturally protect me. So I followed her. I followed her through the casino floor, past rows of machines, past tables where people were still playing blackjack and craps at 3 a.m, past the sports betting area with its wall of screens, through a door marked employees only, down a hallway with industrial carpet and fluorescent lights, and into a small office. The office was exactly what you'd expect. Metal desk, 2 chairs, one behind the desk, one in front, filing cabinets, a computer monitor, motivational poster on the wall about teamwork. Nothing threatening, nothing obviously wrong. Just sterile and corporate and designed to feel official. Karen sat behind the desk. One of the security guards stood by the door, not blocking it, just present. The other one left, and Karen opened a manila folder that was already sitting on the desk, which I realize now means they'd prepared this conversation before they even walked up to me. So, she said, and she sighed like she was delivering bad news she wished she didn't have to deliver. I pulled the maintenance logs for that machine, and unfortunately, we're showing a malfunction error. I blinked. Those words didn't make sense. What do you mean? A malfunction. The machine registered a fault code about 30 seconds before your spin, she said. She was reading from a script she'd delivered 100 times. It's a known issue with that model of MEGABUCKS system. Sometimes the progressive counter disconnects from the actual probability algorithm, and when that happens, the machine can display false jackpots. The screen shows the win, but the internal system knows the win didn't actually occur according to the legitimate odds. She said all of this so calmly, so matter-of-factly. She was explaining how a coffee maker works, but the machine was working fine, I said, and I could hear my voice getting tighter. I'd been playing it for 20 minutes. It took my money. It paid out smaller wins. Everything was normal. I understand how it seems, she said. And this is the phrase that I want you to remember, because this is psychological warfare disguised as empathy. I understand how it seems acknowledges your perception while simultaneously positioning it as naive, as incomplete, as the perspective of someone who doesn't understand the technical reality that she, the authority figure, has access to. But the error code doesn't lie, she continued. The machine was in fault mode. Any pays during fault mode are void according to gaming regulations and the terms you agreed to when you inserted your player's card. She slid a printed sheet of paper across the desk toward me. Terms and conditions. Small print, pages and pages of it. And highlighted in yellow was one sentence. Machine malfunction voids all pays and plays. I stared at that sentence. I read it 3 times, and something in my chest started to crack. I want to see the error code, I said. Can you show me the actual maintenance log? Can I see what the fault code says? That's proprietary technical information, Karen said, her smile still in place. For security and regulatory reasons, we can't share internal diagnostic data with players. But you're absolutely welcome to file a complaint with the State Gaming Commission if you feel we've acted improperly. They have full access to our systems, and they'll review everything in writing. This moment, this is where most people stop, because she'd done something brilliant. She'd given me a path forward that felt like action, but was actually designed to exhaust me. Filing a complaint with a regulatory body sounds official. It sounds like justice. But what she wasn't saying, what she was counting on me not knowing, is that process takes months. It requires technical expertise most people don't have. It involves fighting a bureaucracy that moves slowly and almost always sides with the regulated industry. And statistically, it almost never results in overturning a casino's decision. She'd given me a maze with no exit and called it a solution. I sat there in that chair, under those fluorescent lights, and I felt something I'd never quite felt before. It wasn't just anger. It wasn't just disappointment. It was this disorienting, stomach-dropping sensation of reality shifting underneath me. I had seen that screen. I had seen those numbers. I had recorded it on video. I knew what had happened. And this woman was looking me in the eyes and telling me that my experience, my direct, witnessed, documented experience, wasn't real, or wasn't valid, or wasn't what I thought it was. Have you ever had someone try to convince you that something you know happened didn't happen? Not in a joking way, not in a misunderstanding way, but deliberately, strategically, with the full weight of institutional authority behind them? It makes you feel crazy. It makes you doubt your own mind, because if they're this confident, if they have procedures and policies and technical language, if they seem so sure, maybe you're the one who's confused. Maybe you missed something. Maybe there's a technical aspect you don't understand. That's gaslighting. That's what it feels like in real time. But then I remembered. I have video. I recorded it, I said, and my voice came out steadier than I felt before you came over. I have video on my phone of the screen showing the jackpot. Karen's expression didn't change. But there was something. A microflash. A tiny tightening around her eyes. She hadn't expected that. The screen showing an amount doesn't mean the amount is valid, she said smoothly. The screen is displaying the error. That's the malfunction. Your video shows what we already know, that the screen displayed a false jackpot. The video doesn't change the technical reality of what happened in the machine's internal system. And I sat there, and I realized something that would later become the foundation of everything I learned. She wasn't trying to convince me I was wrong. She was trying to convince me that being right didn't matter. Those are two different things. And understanding that difference is everything. Psha, I could be right about what I saw. I could have evidence. I could have documentation. I could be objectively, factually, unquestionably correct about my experience. And none of that would matter if I didn't understand how to make my correctness strategically expensive for them to ignore. Karen was betting, and the casino was betting, that I would do what most people do. Get upset, maybe yell a little, threaten to call a lawyer, but not actually do it. Post an angry review online, tell my friends, feel bitter for a while, and then eventually move on. Because fighting is exhausting, and they have more resources than I do, and the system is designed to break people like me. They were betting that my truth didn't have strategy behind it, that my righteousness wouldn't translate into leverage. And sitting in that office, I made a decision that would change everything. I decided not to give them what they expected. I didn't yell. I didn't call her a liar, even though that's what she was. I didn't threaten anything. I didn't perform emotion. Instead, I took out my phone again. Slowly, deliberately, and I opened my notes app. And I started typing while she watched. "Can you spell your name for me?" I asked. "Karen Mitchell," she said, and I saw her eyes narrow slightly. "What's your title?" "Floor manager. And the specific reason you're denying the payout is a malfunction error code that occurred 30 seconds before my spin. What's the error code number?" "I don't have that information in front of me right now." "Who do I contact at the Gaming Commission?" She gave me a website. I typed it in. "And when I file my complaint, what's the official reason for denial that will appear on your report?" "Machine malfunction voiding payout per terms of service." "And will you be providing me written documentation of this decision?" "We can send you a letter." "Yes." I was calm. I was methodical. And with every question I asked, I was doing something she didn't expect. I was creating a record. I was forcing her to state her story clearly, on my terms, with me controlling what got documented. The security guard shifted his weight. Karen's smile got a little tighter. "Is there anything else?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "I'd like the names of the witnesses who were present when the jackpot displayed." The woman standing next to me congratulated me. "I'd like her contact information for my complaint. We don't provide personal information about other guests. Can you at least note in your report that there were witnesses?" "I'll make a note. Thank you. And one more thing. When the Gaming Commission investigates this, they'll have access to the machine's complete diagnostic history, correct? Not just the logs you're referencing, but the full technical record?" "Yes," The Gaming Commission has full access. Great. Then I'll request that as part of my complaint. Thank you for your time. I stood up. I walked out. The security guard didn't stop me. And as I walked through that hallway, back at the casino floor where people were still playing like nothing had happened, out into the parking lot where the desert air was cold and the sky was starting to lighten with the earliest hint of dawn, I felt something strange. I felt like I just lost $78,000, and I felt like I'd just found something more valuable. I'd found the difference between being a victim and being a strategist. I sat in my car. I didn't cry, though I wanted to. I didn't scream, though I wanted to. Instead, I opened my phone and I did 3 things. First, I backed up that video to 3 different places: cloud storage, emailed to myself, and sent to my best friend with a message that just said, "If anything happens to me, this matters." Second, I wrote down everything that had just happened, every detail I could remember. What time I sat at the machine, how many spins, the exact moment the jackpot hit, what Karen said, word for word as much as I could recall, what the security guard looked like, the layout of the office, everything, because I knew that memory fades and gets rewritten. And if this was going to be a fight, I needed my original story locked down before time or doubt could corrupt it. Third, I Googled casino denied jackpot machine malfunction. And what I found broke my heart and radicalized me at the same time. Page after page of stories, news articles, forum posts, Reddit threads, legal advice columns, people, and dozens of people who had hit jackpots and been told the exact same thing. Machine malfunction. Error code. Terms of service. Denied. A woman in Nevada hit a $41 million jackpot on a penny slot and was offered a steak dinner instead because the casino claimed a software glitch. A man in Iowa hit $12,000 and was told the machine had been misconfigured and the max payout was supposed to be $2,000. A grandmother in Louisiana hit $18,000 and was escorted out by security after the casino claimed she'd been banned 2 years earlier under a different name, which she proved was false. But it didn't matter, because by then they'd already wiped the machine. Story. And in the comments, you could see the pattern. Most people fought for a little while, got exhausted, and walked away. Some accepted small settlement offers, a few $100s, maybe $1,000, just to make the pain stop. A tiny percentage hired lawyers and fought for months or years, with mixed results. Very few won. The system was designed to work exactly this way. The machine malfunction voids all pays clause exists in every casino's terms and conditions. And on the surface, it makes sense. If a machine genuinely breaks, if there's a real technical failure, of course the casino shouldn't be liable for false payouts. That's reasonable consumer protection going both ways. But here's what I discovered through hundreds of hours of research over the next few weeks. That clause has been weaponized. Malfunction is deliberately undefined in most casino policies. It's vague. It's broad. It can mean anything from a genuine technical failure to an administrative error to just, we don't want to pay this. And because the casino controls the machines, controls the diagnostic systems, controls the maintenance logs, and controls the narrative, they can invoke malfunction almost any time they want to. And they do. Not for small wins. Those are marketing. Those keep people playing. But for jackpots large enough to hurt quarterly profits, for payouts that would require corporate approval, for wins that exceed certain thresholds, they look for any excuse, any technicality, any way to invoke that clause. And here's the thing that made me angriest. Most of the time, there is no actual malfunction. The machines are working exactly as designed. They're tested rigorously by gaming commissions. They're monitored constantly. They have fail-safes. If there's a real error, the machine locks up immediately. It stops taking bets. It displays a clear fault message. What it can't do, according to its own programming, is continue operating normally, accept bets, pay out smaller wins, and then only malfunction on the largest payout. But that's exactly what casinos claim happened in case. They're lying. Not always. I'm sure there are legitimate malfunction cases. But in mine, in that moment, that machine was working perfectly 5 seconds before my jackpot and working perfectly 5 seconds after. There was no error, no fault code, no technical failure. Karen lied to my face, and she did it confidently, with procedures and policies behind her, betting that I wouldn't know how to call her bluff. And the reason she could do that, the reason this works, is because most people are isolated. They think they're the only one. They think this is some rare technical glitch that happened to them specifically. They don't realize it's a pattern, a strategy, a way that casinos protect their profit margins while maintaining the illusion of fairness. I sat in my car reading these stories as the sun came up, and I felt something shift in my chest, a kind of cold clarity. I wasn't fighting for just my $78,000 anymore. I was fighting a system, and systems don't change because you're right. They change because fighting you becomes more expensive than accommodating you. So I needed to make myself expensive. Let me tell you exactly how I did that, because this is the part that matters. This is the tactical breakdown. This is what you can take and apply to any institutional fight you'll ever have. With an employer who denies you wages, with an insurance company that rejects a claim, with any entity that has more power than you and is counting on you to walk away quietly. I built a 3-tier escalation strategy, and each tier was designed not to prove I was right, but to make denying me more costly than paying me. Tier 1 was internal complaint and paper trail. The next day, I went back to the casino. I asked to speak to the general manager, not Karen. Above Karen. I brought printed documentation, screenshots of my video, my player's card statement showing the timestamp I was at that machine, a written statement of what happened, and a printed copy of the terms of service with the malfunction clause. Highlighted, the general manager's assistant tried to redirect me to customer service. I politely refused. I said, I need to file a formal complaint about a denied jackpot, and I need to speak to someone with authority to review this decision. I'll wait. I waited 2 hours. I sat in the lobby. I was calm. I read a book on my phone. I didn't leave. Finally, the general manager came out, a man in his 60s, corporate demeanor, very let's resolve this quickly energy. We went to his office. I laid out my documentation. I explained what happened. I showed him the video. He watched it. He nodded. He said, I see. Let me look into this and get back to you. I need this complaint formally documented in your system, I said, with a reference number and a timeline for response. I'll be following up with the Gaming Commission, and I need to show that I attempted resolution through your internal process first. He gave me a complaint number. He said he'd have a response within 10 business days. This accomplished several things. It created an official record that I'd attempted to resolve this internally. It put a timeline on their response, which meant they couldn't ignore me indefinitely. And it forced someone above Karen to look at my case, which meant Karen's version of events was no longer the only version in their system. But I didn't wait for his response, because Tier 1 was just setting the foundation. Tier 2 was external regulatory complaint. That same day, I went home and I filed a formal complaint with the State Gaming Commission. This is free. This is public record. And this is the move that most people don't make because they think it won't matter, or it's too complicated, or it'll take too long. But here's what it actually does. It forces the casino to respond to a regulatory authority, not just to you. It creates a file. It starts an investigation. And most importantly, it changes their calculation. When you're just an angry customer, they can wait you out. When you're a regulatory complaint, you're a compliance problem. And compliance problems involve legal departments and corporate risk management and people whose job is to avoid regulatory scrutiny. In my complaint, I was specific. I included the machine number, the exact time of the win, screenshots from my video, the player's card number, and a detailed timeline. I explained why the casino's malfunction claim was inconsistent with the machine's behavior. It had operated normally before and after. It displayed a clear jackpot. There was no visible error message or fault code, and I had video documentation. And then I did something that turned out to be critical. I mentioned that in my research, I'd found multiple similar cases of denied jackpots at this casino chain, and I requested that the Gaming Commission investigate whether this was a pattern of practice rather than isolated incidents. That phrase, pattern of practice, is powerful because regulatory agencies don't care that much about one-off incidents, but they care a lot about patterns that suggest systematic problems. Patterns threaten licenses. Patterns trigger audits. Patterns create political pressure. I wasn't just filing a complaint about my case. I was asking them to look at whether this casino was abusing the malfunction clause systematically. And then I didn't stop there. I found 3 other people through online forums who had been denied jackpots at casinos owned by the same parent company. I reached out to them privately. I shared my documentation. I asked them to file their own complaints and reference each other's cases, creating a cluster of related complaints that would flag the pattern for investigators. 2 of them did. And suddenly, the Gaming Commission wasn't looking at Marcus Chen's isolated dispute. They were looking at multiple complaints suggesting systematic denial of legitimate payouts. That's Tier 2. And Tier 2 makes you expensive. Because now, they're not just dealing with you. They're dealing with regulatory scrutiny, potential audits, and the risk of public enforcement actions. But even that wasn't enough, because gaming commissions are slow. The investigation process takes months. And I knew from my research that most of these complaints resulted in the commission saying, "We reviewed it. The casino followed their policies. Case closed." So I needed Tier 3. Tier 3 was legal representation. 2 weeks after the jackpot, after I'd filed internal and external complaints, I hired an attorney. I didn't hire a huge law firm. I couldn't afford that. But I found a local attorney who specialized in consumer protection and had experience with gaming disputes. Her name was Angela. She was in her 40s, ran a small practice, and she offered a free initial consultation. I went to her office with my entire file, printed and organized chronologically, video evidence, documentation of my complaints, screenshots of similar cases, transcripts of my conversations with Karen and the general manager. Everything. She reviewed it for about 40 minutes, and then she looked at me and said, "You've got a case. Not a guaranteed win, but a credible case. The problem is going to be discovery, getting access to their maintenance logs to prove there was no malfunction. What's that going to cost?" I asked. She quoted me $1,500 as a retainer to send a formal letter and handle initial negotiations. If it went to litigation, we'd talk about contingency arrangements. I had about $2,000 in savings. Spending $1,500 of it on a lawyer for a case I might not win was terrifying. But I thought about that $78,000. I thought about all the people I'd read about who walked away because they didn't know what to do next. I hired her. And the letter she sent changed everything. Angela didn't send the letter to Karen. She didn't send it to the general manager. She sent it directly to the casino's corporate legal department. The letter laid out my case clearly and professionally. It referenced the video evidence, the Gaming Commission complaint, the inconsistencies in the malfunction claim, and the pattern of similar denials I documented. But here's what made it effective. The letter didn't threaten a lawsuit. Not directly. Instead, it requested mediation. It said that I was willing to resolve this through alternative dispute resolution, which would be faster and less costly than litigation for both parties. But that if mediation wasn't available, I was prepared to pursue all available legal remedies, including discovery of maintenance records, machine diagnostic histories, and internal communications regarding jackpot denial policies. That last part, the discovery threat, is the leverage, because if this went to actual litigation, where my attorney could subpoena their internal records, we could see whether there really was a fault code. We could review their communications about my case. We could potentially expose if they'd lied. And more than that, discovery could reveal patterns. If we got access to their maintenance logs for that machine over time, we could show whether it had a history of malfunctions, or whether it had been working perfectly and they'd invented an error after the fact. We could request their internal policies about when to invoke the malfunction clause. Discovery is expensive for companies. It requires dedicating staff time. It creates paper trails. It exposes internal processes to outside scrutiny, and it opens the door to findings that could be used in other cases. The letter was essentially saying, you can settle this quietly for $78,000, or you can fight me and risk spending more than that in legal fees, while creating discoverable records that other denied jackpot winners could use against you in the future. We sent the letter on a Wednesday. On Friday afternoon, I got a call from a corporate attorney for the casino company. Not Karen. Not the general manager. Corporate counsel. He was professional. No hostility. He said they'd reviewed my complaint and the attorney's letter. He said they wanted to avoid protracted litigation. He asked if I'd be willing to enter mediation with a neutral third party. I said yes. Mediation was scheduled for 3 weeks out. In the meantime, Angela requested that they preserve all records related to the machine in question, maintenance logs, diagnostic data, surveillance footage. They agreed. And then we waited. Those 3 weeks were some of the hardest of my life. Not because of the legal stuff. Angela was handling that. But because of the emotional toll. Because here's what nobody tells you about fighting a rigged system. The process is designed to break you psychologically before you ever get to a resolution. Every day, I woke up thinking about that jackpot. Every day, I went to my job in IT support and pretended everything was normal while my brain was churning through worst-case scenarios. Every night, I lay awake, running through arguments and counter-arguments and what-ifs. And the whole time, there was this voice in my head, quiet but persistent, asking, what if they're right? What if there was a malfunction you didn't understand? What if you're wrong? That's what gaslighting does. It doesn't convince you all at once. It just plants doubt. And that doubt grows in the spaces between actions, in the waiting periods, in the moments when you're alone with your thoughts. I had video evidence. I had witnesses. I had documentation. I had an attorney who believed me. I still doubted myself, because when someone with authority, institutional authority, legal authority, technical authority, tells you your reality isn't real, it's incredibly hard to hold on to your truth. The only thing that kept me steady was something my best friend told me. I'd called her one night, about a week before mediation, and I was spiraling. I said, what if I'm spending all this money and energy on something that's not even real? What if I'm being crazy? And she said, Marcus, you saw what you saw. You recorded what you recorded. Either that happened or it didn't. And if it happened, which it did, then whether they pay you or not doesn't change the fact that it happened. You're not fighting to prove reality. You're fighting for fairness within reality. Those are different things. And you don't have to win for this to have mattered. That conversation shifted something for me. I realized I'd been letting the casino's framing control my emotional state. They wanted me to question whether I'd won, but I didn't need to question that. I knew I'd won. I had proof I'd won. The actual fight was different. It was about whether they would be held accountable for denying what had objectively occurred. And if I lost, if they successfully used their resources and their policies to avoid paying me, that didn't mean I'd been wrong about what happened. It meant the system was rigged, which I already knew. This reframe helped me stop doubting my experience and start focusing on strategy. So I used those 3 weeks to prepare. Angela and I met twice. We reviewed the video frame by frame. We built a timeline. We prepared responses to every argument we thought they'd make. And we decided on our walkaway number. The minimum I'd accept in settlement, $78,000. Full amount. I wouldn't take less. Angela thought that was risky. She said most mediations result in both sides compromising. But I was firm. I said, if they offer less, it means they're still trying to cheat me, just by a smaller amount. I'd rather lose completely than accept a partial theft. She respected that. Mediation day arrived. It was held in a conference room at a neutral law office. The mediator was a retired judge, a woman in her 70s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Angela and I sat on one side of the table. The casino sent 2 representatives, their corporate attorney and a vice president of operations. The mediator explained the process. This was non-binding. Anything said in this room was confidential and couldn't be used in court later. Her job was to facilitate negotiation, not to judge who was right. Then each side gave their opening statement. The casino's attorney went first. He said they sympathized with my disappointment, but their position was firm. The machine had registered a fault code prior to my spin, making any displayed jackpot void per their terms of service. He said the malfunction clause was standard in the industry and legally enforceable. He said they'd conducted an internal investigation and found their floor manager's decision was appropriate. He said they were willing to offer a gesture of goodwill, $5,000, to resolve this matter without further dispute. $5,000 out of $78,000. I felt rage spike in my chest, but Angela had prepped me for this. She squeezed my arm gently under the table, a signal to stay quiet and let her handle it. Angela responded calmly. She said their malfunction claim was inconsistent with the evidence. She said their maintenance logs, which they'd provided in discovery, showed no fault code at the time they claimed. She said the video evidence clearly showed a properly functioning machine displaying a legitimate jackpot. She said the pattern of similar denials at their properties suggested this was a profit protection strategy, not a technical issue. And she said that if this didn't settle today, we were prepared to proceed to litigation with discovery that would expose their internal practices around jackpot denials. The mediator asked if she could see the video. Angela played it on her laptop. The mediator watched it twice. Then she asked the casino attorney, "Where's the evidence of the fault code?" He said it was in their internal maintenance log, which he had in his file. He pulled out a printout. Pages of technical data, timestamps, machine diagnostics. Angela asked to see it. She reviewed it for about 10 minutes. Then she pointed to something and said, "This log shows routine diagnostics running every 15 minutes. The timestamp closest to Mr. Chen's jackpot is 2:32 a.m., 15 minutes before. The next diagnostic was 2:47 a.m., the exact time of his jackpot. Both show normal operation, no fault codes. Where's the error you're referencing?" The casino attorney looked uncomfortable. He flipped through pages. He said, "The fault was detected in post-event analysis, not in real-time diagnostics. So the machine didn't detect a fault," Angela said. "Your staff decided there was a fault after seeing the jackpot amount. That's not," he started. "Do you have any evidence from the machine itself? Any system-generated error message? Any automatic lockout? Any contemporaneous fault detection that occurred at the time of Mr. Chen's spin?" Silence. "Because what Mr. Chen's video shows, and what your own logs confirm, is that the machine was operating normally. It accepted his bet. It completed the spin. It displayed a jackpot. And only after your staff saw the amount did they decide to claim malfunction." The mediator intervened. "Let's take a break. I'd like to speak with each party separately." We went to separate rooms. The mediator came to ours first. She said, off the record, that we had a strong case. She said the casino's documentation didn't support their malfunction claim. She said if this went to trial, we'd likely win, but it would take months and cost both sides significant money. She asked if we'd accept less than $78,000 to settle today. Angela looked at me. I shook my head. "Full amount." I said, "I won that jackpot. I have proof. If they won't pay it, then they're choosing to steal from me. And I'd rather take that to trial and lose than validate partial theft." The mediator nodded and left. An hour later, she came back. "They've agreed to pay $78,384, she said. "Full amount. In exchange, you'll sign a confidentiality agreement that prevents you from publicly identifying the casino or discussing the settlement amount. And there will be no admission of wrongdoing on their part." I looked at Angela. She nodded. "One more thing," I said. "The confidentiality clause can't prevent me from discussing my experience generally, or from sharing advice about how to handle similar situations. It can only restrict me from identifying them specifically." The mediator went back to negotiate that language. 30 minutes later, we had an agreement. I signed papers. They cut a check. And 2 months after that night, when $78,000 appeared on a screen and then vanished, it appeared again. In my bank account, real and permanent and mine. I paid off my student loans. I paid for my mom's surgery. I put some in savings. And I spent some of it on a consultation with a legal aid organization about how to help other people who'd been denied jackpots. Because here's the thing. I won. But I won Because I had just enough resources, just enough time, just enough knowledge, and just enough stubbornness to fight a system that was designed to make me give up. Most people don't have that combination. And that's why this works. That's why casinos can invoke malfunction clauses, even when there's no malfunction. That's why insurance companies can deny valid claims. That's why employers can steal wages. That's why institutions can gaslight individuals with impunity. Because they know most people will walk away. They know the cost of fighting, emotionally, financially, temporally, exceeds most people's capacity. They're not betting on being right. They're betting on being more expensive to fight than the amount they're stealing. And usually, they win that bet, but not always. And understanding the rules of that game is everything. So let me bring this full circle, because the money was never actually the point. The point is this: you are not powerless because someone with authority says you are. Every single one of you has been in a moment, or will be in a moment, where someone with more institutional power than you tries to tell you that what you know is real isn't real, where they use policies and procedures and technical language to make you doubt your own experience, where they count on you being isolated, exhausted, and convinced that the system won't protect you. And here's what I need you to understand. They're half right. The system probably won't protect you. Not automatically. Not because you're right. Systems are designed to protect themselves, not individuals. But that doesn't mean you're powerless. What I learned in that casino, in that office, through those 2 months of fighting, is that power isn't about being stronger. It's about being strategically more expensive to ignore than to accommodate. Documentation makes you expensive. Recording, screenshotting, writing things down in real time. That creates paper trails that institutions have to respond to. External complaints make you expensive. Involving regulatory bodies, even if they move slowly, forces companies to dedicate compliance resources and risk scrutiny. Legal representation makes you expensive. Even just the threat of discovery, of having internal communications subpoenaed, of creating precedent that others can use, that changes the calculus. Patterns make you expensive. Finding other people who've experienced the same thing, connecting your cases, showing this isn't isolated. That threatens licenses and triggers investigations. And emotional endurance makes you expensive. Because if you won't break, if you won't doubt yourself, if you hold on to your truth and keep showing up with documentation and demands, eventually it becomes cheaper to pay you than to keep fighting you. That's not justice. That's not fairness. That's just math. But it's the math that runs the world. And once you understand it, you stop waiting for systems to be fair and start making unfairness costly. Now, I want to give you something practical, because if you're watching this video, there's a good chance you're either in a fight right now, or you've been in one before, and you're still carrying the weight of how it ended. If you ever hit a jackpot and they tell you it's a malfunction, you have about 90 seconds to do these things. 1. Immediately start recording. Video of the screen, the machine number, your player's card if it's inserted. You're not asking permission. You're documenting reality before they can control the narrative. 2. Do not touch the machine after they tell you to stop playing. Hands off, visible. You're preserving it as evidence. 3. Ask for specific information and record the answers. What is the specific error code? Who do I contact to appeal? Will you provide written documentation? Make them state their reasons clearly on your recording. 4. Do not leave the casino floor immediately. Say you'd like to wait while they retrieve maintenance logs and a manager. Make them do the work in real time, where others can witness. 5. Identify witnesses. If other people are nearby, introduce yourself. Get names and numbers if possible. This protocol applies everywhere. The moment someone denies your reality, document everything. Emails get screenshotted. Conversations get confirmed in writing. Witnesses get identified. And then, the long game. Week 1. File an internal complaint. Request a formal meeting with someone above the person who denied you. Bring written documentation. Ask for a written response with a deadline. Week 2 or 3. File external complaints with relevant regulatory bodies. Be specific. Be factual. Request investigation into whether this is a pattern. Week 4. Do community research. Find others who've experienced similar situations. Document patterns. Week 5 or 6. Get a legal consultation. Many attorneys offer free initial meetings. Bring everything organized chronologically. Ask about leverage. Week 7 and beyond. Strategic escalation. Attorney sends a letter requesting mediation. You continue documenting. Most cases settle before trial. But here's the emotional sustainability piece, because you cannot fight angry for months. Daily practice. Write down what you know to be true. One sentence. Write down your strategy. One action for today. That's it. Don't spiral. Just one truth, one strategy, one action. Weekly check-in. 1 hour to feel everything. Cry. Journal. Call your person. Then close the laptop and go remember who you are outside this fight. Monthly perspective. Are you closer to resolution than you were 30 days ago? If yes, keep going. If no, reassess and know your quit point. If the fight is damaging your health more than the money would improve your life, it's okay to walk away. Strategic retreat is not failure. The hardest lesson I learned through all of this is that being right is just the starting point. It's not the finish line. You can be objectively, provably, unquestionably right, and still lose if you don't understand how to translate righteousness into leverage. And the reason most people lose isn't because they're wrong, because they're fighting the wrong battle. They're trying to prove they're right to people who already know they're right and have decided it doesn't matter. The actual battle is, make denying me more expensive than accommodating me. That's it. That's the game. Once you see that, everything shifts. You stop arguing about reality and start calculating cost. You stop performing emotion and start documenting patterns. You stop hoping for fairness and start creating leverage. It's not inspirational. It's not what we're taught, but it's true. And truth without strategy is just noise. What happened to me in that casino isn't a story about gambling. It's a story about the moment I stopped believing that institutions were on my side and started understanding that I could force them to act like they were. And I'm telling you this story because I know there are people watching this right now who are in the middle of their own version of this. Different context, same structure. An employer denying you wages. An insurance company rejecting your claim. A landlord violating your lease. A school ignoring your kids' needs. Any situation where someone with more power than you is counting on you to walk away quietly. And I need you to hear this. You are not crazy. You did see what you saw. You do know what you know. And the fact that they're telling you otherwise isn't evidence that you're wrong. It's evidence that your truth is threatening to them. The only question is, are you willing to make that threat credible? Because that's what it takes. Not hope. Not optimism. Not faith in systems. Just a clear-eyed understanding of how institutions actually make decisions, and a willingness to be strategically expensive until they decide paying you is cheaper than fighting you. That's the blueprint. That's what I learned. That's what I'm giving you. And if you use it, if it helps you win something you'd otherwise have lost, I need you to come back and tell that story. Not for me, for the next person. Because the only way we break these systems is by refusing to stay isolated. Karen counted on my isolation. The casino counted on my silence. The whole structure depends on each person thinking they're alone. But you're not. I'm here. And everyone who's ever fought and won is here in this video, in these comments, in the shared understanding that we don't have to accept what we're told just because the person telling us has a title. So here's your mantra. The thing I repeated to myself every single day for 2 months. They're counting on my silence. They're betting on my exhaustion. They're hoping I'll doubt myself. But my truth is not up for negotiation. And my leverage grows every time I refuse to disappear. Say it with me. My truth is not up for negotiation. One more time. My truth is not up for negotiation. You're not broken. You haven't failed. You're just playing a game where they wrote the rules to make you lose. But now you know the real rules. And knowing the rules means you can win. If this video resonated with you, if you've been gaslit by someone with more power, if you're currently fighting and needed to hear you're not crazy, leave me a comment. Tell me where you are in your fight. Tell me what you're up against. Let's build the pattern together. Hit subscribe because I'm not done with this. There are more systems to expose, more leverage points to reveal, more ways to turn your truth into power. You came here because a casino tried to steal from me and you wanted to know what I did. What I did was, I learned that being right is just the beginning. And strategy is everything. Now you know it too. Thanks for being here. Now go be expensive to ignore.